Hey, good morning, everybody. Starting a little bit early today. There was a power outage, and so I'm on generator. So they want to move my whole office into the living room. So I'm on battery power on this laptop. So I think we can get through a show today on battery power. What do you guys think? Now, here's a weird thing. How many of you guys are having power outages this time of year? And it's weird because typically power outages usually happen in the summer, middle of summer, when everybody's using electricity, right? So what is going on? This is weird. Now I'm hearing of power outages in California as well and other places. And now here we are out in rural Arkansas. There should be no reason for the power to be out, but there were no storms or anything, no high winds, nothing. So are you guys having power outages too? I'm just curious before we get started with this. But very crazy. Now, let's get into the show today. Trump is the master of deflection, and he's pretending now to distance himself from this whole thing with warp speed. And this is typical, right? Typically, he did the same thing with Epstein. When the potato gets too hot, he ditches the potato, and then he makes up a cover story saying, "Oh, I learned that this particular person was someone I shouldn't be hanging around." But yet, during those years where he supposedly distanced himself from Epstein, he was buddied up with John Casablancas, a known PDF file, during those very same years. And in fact, we'd covered this several times. In fact, he sent his daughter to go to modeling school with him, and he set this guy up to run his South American real estate empire. So, just because he says something doesn't mean it's always true. It was a hot potato. That's why he distanced himself, not because he was opposed to his lifestyle. Because otherwise, he would have got rid of all the PDF files in his life, right? Including John Casablancas, which, believe it or not, John Casablancas, who is now deceased, or so they say, he was a much more proliferative PDF file than Epstein was, believe it or not, because he ran a whole modeling agency with young girls and was very open about how he felt about young girls. His very first girlfriend was 16 years old and he was like 40 or something. So don't get it twisted, you guys. You got to look at the history with this stuff. Now we're going to look at some hard, tough facts today so that you guys can understand what's going on. You guys get it, but oftentimes you need proof to when you engage other people in conversations and they depict Trump as this white knight who's going to save the world. You'll have some ammunition, some talking points to go to that you need to keep up on in order to be well versed, right? That's why we're here, because this is all about helping people to snap out of it. All right, let's see. Let's go into the chat here. They've been spraying nonstop, says Skies Over Spokane. Crazy. So what's going on with this? Let's get into this. This is crazy. After 5 years of Trump bragging about being the father of the Smack the Nation and even recommending it dozens of times on record, telling people they should go get it. He's the father of it. Remember? And then we even showed how he really wasn't the father of it. Really, Obama was working on this and spending tens of millions of dollars that went directly to Moderna and DARPA to develop the mRNA technology. Remember that? So he's probably the true father, but Trump took the credit. And now he's pretending to question the very vaccine that he promoted. This is crazy. Trump demands drug makers justify their success with the Smack the Nations. Trump called on drug companies to justify their success in combating the VidCo-19 Smack the Virus Nation, demanding the immediate release of data on the matter while the CDC is being ripped apart over this question. Now remember, the reason why I'm making up these funny pet names is because we still live in a social media world where you can't even talk about this stuff. And to me, that's the most glaring clue about all this, about what's really happening. It is the most glaring clue. that you're not even allowed to discuss this long after they've dropped the whole narrative of, oh, misinformation could kill people. People could die because they listen to a YouTube channel. Well, here we are, millions of us walking around who never got the smack of the nation. And we're just fine. In fact, we feel fantastic, don't we? Trump's remarks in September 1st post on Truth Social follow his firing last week of the CDC director, Susan Manaras. Just 1 month into her tenure after a disagreement she had over the vaccine policy. Many people think they are a miracle that saved millions of lives. Others disagree, said Trump. So now he's backing the car out of the garage, creating doubt and question, dropping the hot potato. Wasn't me. I didn't do it. Wasn't me. It was the pharmaceutical companies that he gave $1 trillion of our dollars to make this thing. Trump said of the Vidco drugs, including the vaccines made by Pfizer, remember, I got the Pfizer. With the CDC being ripped apart over this question, I want the answer, and I want it now, he says. Wow, so now he's starting to change the narrative. And unfortunately, there's so many sleep people, they will forget all of this. They'll forget the Warp Speed logo, which is an anti-corona, which means against the crown, stealing your crown, the Reiki symbol. It means consciousness. They'll forget all of that. They'll forget bioelectronics, the guy who headed up Warp Speed, and they'll just go straight to, well, Trump didn't make it. He wasn't in the lab. He didn't make it. So how could he have known? Well, but wait a minute. Isn't he supposed to be like 5D chess? Isn't he supposed to have this supernatural ability to foresee these things? But instead, here we are. And it's not just the pain we went through with how we were forced. Many people were forced, their livelihoods threatened because they didn't do it. But now people are finally waking up. And let's just say they're waking up to the obvious about the people who did get it. So the good news about all this is that what we are doing is working on some level. Even if it's not obvious or visible, the spiritual battle is being won. People are being separated, the sheep from the goats. Some have been put under the strong delusion, obviously. But for Trump to now come out and, actually start to back away from this means that whatever we're doing is working. The sad part is that people will still give him a pass. Now, of course, Trump didn't physically make the Smack the Nation in a lab, but he commissioned it, spent billions on it, and did very little to protect the rights of the people who didn't want it. He left us all hanging. He left it up to the states. It's funny. He's running right through the states right now and their rights, isn't he? Bullying, shoving, pushing them around, dropping troops into their states for this illegal issue. But he couldn't stand up for you and I when we said we didn't want it. Here's some more clown world. As Trump literally wants to award Rudy Giuliani the Presidential Medal of Freedom for 9/11. What a smack in the face. The president who promised to do an investigation into 9/11, and instead he doesn't give us our investigation, and now he's going to award Rudy Giuliani, the liar in chief of New York, who had to have known what was going on. And I guess it wasn't enough that Trump got to stuff his face into Giuliani's cross-dressed breasts. If you haven't seen that video, it just might change your mind about some things. Yes, that is Rudy Giuliani on the left and Donald Trump. So let's read about this Presidential Medal of Freedom. It just keeps getting weirder and sicker, you guys. President Donald Trump said Monday he will award former New York Mayor Rudolph Giuliani the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor, 2 days after his longtime political ally was seriously injured in a car crash. The decision places, now understand, look, if you have questions about this and you think, oh, Casey, you're just a conspiracy theorist, there's no way they could have got all those people to lie. And, you're just making all this up. It was 9/11. That's yesterday's news. That was 20 something years ago. Just drop it. What good is it going to do anyway? Right? Well, I suggest you tune into Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. Thousands of architects and engineers that say there is no way that Building 7 could have fallen in its own footprint without explosives. In fact, on their show the other day, now I don't agree with everything they say, okay? I believe they're kind of stuck on the whole thermite aspect. I believe that thermite was put there as kind of a smokescreen to take you off task. Yes, there could have been thermite used, but I believe it was a triple attack. I believe that maybe some of that was used. Maybe they used that for 7, actually, for Building 7. But there's something else that happened. I think there was an energy weapon. Now, I can't prove that, but we've pondered that possibility over the years in some of the videos that we've done. But the beauty of architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth is that they are literally people who know what they're talking about. And they bring on guests. And just the other day, they brought on an actual police chief, or he was a sergeant, I believe, who was there when it happened on that day. Very few people are not afraid to speak out about this, because you could lose your life. If your voice starts gaining traction and you're a person that was actually an eyewitness and you have any kind of credentials, they could literally unalive you to cover it up. Because some of these people who are involved in this are still alive, like Bush. Never forget, the World Trade Center Board of Directors was established on the very day and year that George Bush Jr. was born. Literally, he birthed in the very World Trade Center complex back in 1946, I believe it was, on his birthday. The day he was born, he was slated to be the president under which it would come down. You can't make that up. That's not an accident. It can't possibly be an accident. Remember, he wasn't from New York. So what is going on with this? Now, the sergeant came on to Architects and Engineers, and he started talking about him running around. He mentioned there were bodies piled up in the lobby, literal bodies. Now, we don't know where they were from. Some people think that there were some blasts that were going off before all this, and there were people that were in the lobby that were dead. He also talks about looking at Building 7, and I think he said he saw it fall or something. And there was all kinds of other information that he dropped that was just unreal. So let's keep going with this. The decision places the award on a man once lauded for leading New York after Blind 11 attacks, later sanctioned by courts and disbarred for amplifying false claims about the 2020 election. Giuliani was also criminally charged in 2 states. He has denied wrongdoing. So Trump sticks up for criminals now. Trump, in a statement on social media, called Giuliani the greatest mayor in the history of New York City. Wow. And equally a great American patriot. For much of the past 2 decades, Giuliani's public life has been defined by a striking rise and fall. After leading New York through the aftermath of Blind 11, he mounted a brief campaign for the Republican presidential nomination and became one of the most recognizable political figures in the country. But as Trump's personal lawyer, he became a central figure in the efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Courts repeatedly rejected the fraud claims he advanced. Blah, blah, blah. So, now you know what's really going on now. Let's keep going. Well, now it's the left. The left are the ones telling the truth. Why? So that it will never be believed. From the Minnesota Scrooter, and now CNN. I don't know if you read the manifesto on the Minnesota Scrooter. A lot of the stuff was true. And now we got CNN fact-checking Trump's claims that Venezuela is trafficking most of the drugs into America, which is completely false. Now, why are they giving the left the truth football? Well, so Trump can dismiss it as a left-wing attack. This is exactly how the right-left paradigm works. And so the people on the right won't believe this because it's coming out of the lips of the left. A prime example, I mean, we're coming into the Blind 11 season, right? It's coming up pretty quick here. And this is a prime example of that. Like, remember, right after Blind 11, it was the left who was awake to this stuff. They're like, something isn't right. There were documentaries, but nobody on the right believed them. Why? Because they were on the left. We're like, oh, there's no way. These people are conspiracy theorists. They're crazy. There's no way we would kill all those people just for oil or just to start a war. There's no way. Remember? You remember? And now, most of the people on the right are the ones that are awake. If you were to go back and watch some of those Michael Moore videos, you'd be like, whoa, he was actually right. Pretty crazy, you guys. Now, let's read this. Trump claims Venezuela's Maduro is a drug trafficking threat to the U.S. Does the data back him up? And it absolutely doesn't. Let's read this. The recent escalation of tensions between Washington and Caracas, which has led to the U.S. deploying at least 7 warships to the Southern Caribbean, can't be tracked back to a particular day. On August 7th, Pam Bondi announced a $50 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Venezuelan President Maduro, who has been facing formal drug trafficking charges since 2020. Bondi declared that Maduro is one of the most powerful drug traffickers in the world and a threat to national security. It's always a threat to the national security, isn't it? Carcass, we'll call it, has always denied these accusations, but within hours, more than 4,000 U.S. military personnel were deployed to the Caribbean. The rapid escalation of the crisis, just days after the Maduro government and Trump celebrated a prisoner exchange, and the resumption of Venezuelan oil exports through Chevron, has surprised many. Donald Trump came to the White House as a president of peace, and the drumbeat from some sectors of the Venezuelan opposition and congressmen from South Florida doesn't fit with the president's message. Now everybody's noticing this, but let's look at the data. Bondi has not presented conclusive evidence of the alleged role in international drug trafficking. Caracas has flatly rejected the claims. For there to be a drug cartel, either you produce the drugs, you process it, or you traffic it. And if there's no cultivation, production, or trafficking in Venezuela, how can there be a cartel? Says this Venezuelan congresswoman. Says here, United States claims is led by Maduro and that the Trump administration declared a terrorist organization. Well, they have to declare that. That way, that gives justification to invade, right? So that's why presidents declare people terrorists. It's kind of like what they do with the drug cartels here in America. Notice you're not hearing too much about the drug cartels. Where are these huge busts? Where are these, these embedded narco terrorists that are on American soil? You don't hear much about that anymore, do you? Mostly ICE is going into huge factories where illegals work. And they might find a couple people with a record out of 300, right? Let's keep reading here. According to the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, Venezuela is not a cocaine-producing country. Almost all cocoa crops, the main ingredient of cocaine, are concentrated in Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. Colombia, in particular, has seen its cocaine production grow dramatically in recent years, due both to an increase in cultivation area and, more significantly, because of higher yields in refining the product, according to UN researchers. In other words, more cocoa leaves are being grown, and at the same time, each leaf produces more cocaine. Of the 3,700 tons of cocoa produced in the world, more than 2,500 tons comes from Colombia, while Venezuela does not appear on production maps, according to the latest UNODC report published in June. Investigators from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency reached similar conclusions, writing in their annual report published in March that 84% of the cocaine seized in the U.S. comes from Colombia. So, Venezuela is not the problem. Why aren't we invading Colombia, right? Or, I don't even think we should be invading Colombia for something like this. But let's take these presidents and leaders at their word. If you were the president and you truly believe there was all this cocaine coming into America and we needed to do something about it, it's a crisis. If you really, really, really believe that, they just got done telling us that we have maps of exactly where all this stuff is. Wouldn't you just firebomb all the cocoa fields? Right? Drop bombs from, 30,000 feet, take out the entire field. Wouldn't it be really easy to do that? And it would only be a matter of time before people are like, you know what? I'm not going to go out in that field and work those cocoa fields because I could die and it's just going to get bombed anyway. Right? And you would know that there shouldn't be any collateral damage because anyone making cocoa leaves and cocoa plants probably is someone, if you felt that way about drugs. I don't particularly feel that way about drugs like cocaine, okay, because it's kind of a niche market here in America. As we said, it's kind of like a rich person drug. Not to say other people don't do it, but it's a habit that's going to cost you some money. It's not like a street drug per se. So why are we at the shores of Venezuela when they don't even produce 90% of the world's cocaine? That actually makes no sense at all. So there's the truth. If you're interested now, how did we get here? How did we get to this point, you guys? With all this madness and clown world and clown presidents and the left and all this. Well, uninformed, right-left paradigm voters. And all that matters is that their side wins. Nobody has the courage to demand something new. Nobody. Very few people. Maybe 5% of Americans demand something new. We've been programmed to love a contest. We've been programmed to pick our team and stand behind it no matter what. And then when we win, we rub it into the other side's face. And we don't think about what's going to happen if they win next time and what they're going to rub in our face. That's the bottom line of America in 3 sentences. There's this place in this town where I went to college called Bubblegum Alley. Some of you might know about it. And now with the advent of social media, people do these disgusting photo ops. It's literally an alley full of bubblegum going up like 15 feet on each side. And it's a narrow alley, so you can almost smell the gum as you walk through this long alley. And people get on social media and they're licking the chewed gum that's stuck to the walls. Now, we were doing this in 1992 when nobody had social media. And the only people that saw what we were doing was each other, right? Just to get a rise out of our friends after one drunk night in downtown San Luis Obispo. But the reason why I bring this up is because we as Americans love to chew the same gum over and over and over again. We love it for some reason. It's like walking through Bubblegum Alley and licking the walls of the chewed gum. This is where we live. Now, I can't even believe the stuff that comes out of some people's mouth. They're happy because their defense stocks are going through the roof. Oh, I invested in defense. I'm rich. Right after they voted for Trump to end all the wars. People are fast asleep, you guys. Fast asleep. Now, what else is going on? Ready for this? They are going to hold a press conference with the Epstein victims. People are going to be outraged. Let's listen to this guy. Refresh this. Now, this is supposed to happen tomorrow.
We've got 212 Democrats and 12 Republicans, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. Look, this is not about Donald Trump, and it's not partisan. This is about justice for the victims of rich and powerful men who abused underage girls. And 10 of these victims are speaking out for the first time at a press conference that Massey and I are organizing on the steps of the Capitol on September 3rd. In this country, people want transparency. They want accountability. I'm confident we're going to get the 218 votes for the discharge petition.
And talk about that news conference, because you're kind of touting it, that it's going to be, if not explosive, there's going to be some news made.
Well, these victims haven't spoken for decades. When Epstein got that lenient plea deal, no one talked to the victims or their lawyers. No one talked to the victims or their lawyers when Maxwell was sentenced. No one has ever heard, what do they want? And my belief is when the American people actually hear the victims for the first time, they are going to sympathize, their hearts are going to be broken, and all the victims are saying is for closure, we need the Epstein files released. That there are a lot of other rich, powerful men, politicians, business leaders who have committed abuse and who have not been held accountable. That's what we're going to hear on September 3rd, and people are going to be outraged, and I don't see how after that the House can't vote for the release of these files.
And here we are, months later, still talking about the release of the files. Now they're going to parade out the victims. This is good, but here's the problem. There's nothing more frustrating than when you think something's going to happen, and then these people get up there and they say a bunch of nothing. Even like with Virginia Giuffre, I was like, just spit it out. Tell us what's going on. But here's the problem. They're all gagged. They're gagged with whatever lawyer, these non-disclosure agreements, the case. This is the problem with our justice system. Nobody can just spit it out anymore. They can get into trouble if they tell the truth, the whole truth. And the huge red flag with Virginia Giuffre was she never implicated Trump. She almost came across just like Ghislaine Maxwell is right now. Everyone's afraid to tell the truth about what Trump was doing. So, of course, Trump was involved. But Virginia Giuffre said, oh, I didn't see Trump. No, you're lying. She was lying. Of course she did. She worked for him. So you have to ask yourself, what's going to happen when these victims get up and show, this is supposed to be what, tomorrow? Is this tomorrow? So we'll probably cover that on tomorrow's show. Well, they probably won't have spoken by the time we do our show in the morning, but we'll cover it day after tomorrow. But here's the problem. Why can't they just tell us, name the name? We need 50 names. 50 names of all the people, and tell us exactly what happened, or release the files. Otherwise, this is all just nothing. It's nothing. Nobody ever goes to jail. Nobody gets in trouble. So, this is what I'm upset about. We'll see, though. Ready for this? Here's one you can show people. Remember I told you war is just human sacrifice? Russia's maker of the T-Series tanks is using hundreds of Western and foreign equipment pieces. Literally, Russia's tanks are made out of U.S. parts. Ukraine's intelligence branch said on Monday that it had newly identified hundreds of foreign-made equipment units used by Russia to make tanks and armored vehicles. Wow. Russia's military has U.S. parts. Russian firm makes the T-Series main battle tanks that form the backbone of Kremlin's armor. The vast majority of this foreign equipment was purchased before 2022 during the 15 years or so that Russia undertook a mass modernization effort of its military. That means many of its tools likely were delivered to Russia before the war in Ukraine began and wouldn't have breached recent international sanctions. So, this is all one big smoke and mirrors show. All right, I'm back in the chat, you guys. We can open up the chat today for open topics if you want for a few minutes. Put your topic requests in capital letters so I could see them. Paul Penna says, were they purchased or obtained on the battlefield, though? Let's go back to the story. Okay. Manufacturing companies directly and through authorized dealers can limit the supply of spare parts, technical fluids, software for machines that work for the Russian military machine. U.S. and European equipment making T-Series tanks. According to Gur's list, which is open to the public, Ural Vagonzavod has been recorded using at least 148 types of equipment made by manufacturers in NATO member states, including the U.S., Germany, and the Czech Republic. Another 42 types of equipment were listed as coming from manufacturers in Europe and Asian nations. So these manufacturers of these equipment, or of this equipment, is selling to all the world's armies. Examples include American-made vertical lathe machines that lift, hold, and rotate heavy-duty equipment, German computer-controlled machining centers, and Italian press brakes for bending metal into precise shapes. Russia's sole major tank manufacturer with its flagship plant. So that's what's going on. They're ordering the parts from Western countries. And we sold it to them. Wow. You think it's an accident that Russia started modernizing their military just before all this kicked off? All right. Good question. I'm back in the chat. Henry Ford was a supporter of Bette Midler. Yes, he was. War is human sacrifice. Always has been. Just like in the movie, sold to the highest bidder. Yep. Cold War military-industrial complex, feeding both sides whilst using the nukes lie as the fear corn to keep the fake Cold War going. Yes, Plane Drifter. Not sure if I agree with that nukes are fake. That's one thing. And again, I don't know any of this, but I don't know if they're fake. Good morning. Henry Ford wrote a book called The International Juice Club, we'll call it. I wish they'd bring that place back. Man, that Juice Club was the best. The strawberry drink was my favorite. You guys remember the Juice Club? They have Wizard or Oz on the Sphere. They have Wizard of Oz on the Sphere in Vegas. Are you talking about? Okay. Selling to world armies so they can smash their people. Yes. Think about it. Who dies? It's the ultimate form of population control. Think about it. War is the ultimate form of population control. You've got all of the most, let's put it this way. The able men, I mean, I don't want to go as far as to say like genetically, but there's only a certain amount of kinds of people that go into the military. You have to pass fitness tests. If you're not a fit person, or maybe your genetics don't make you a physical person, and this could be from any race or anybody, you're not going to be able to do well in the military. You're not going to be one of the soldiers fighting. So it's the best of us in terms of the physical, right? And so they basically erase that from the genetic pool. And they do this every so many decades. And if they see a country starting to populate out of control, they just start a war. And all of the genetically fittest people go and lose their life. Then you've got a bunch of single mothers left behind. You're creating, here's the other big secret that nobody wants to talk about. I think the power just came back on. The other big secret that nobody wants to talk about is that, can you guys hear me? The power just came on. I just want to make sure we're okay. Okay, well, I think we are. Is that when you send a soldier off to war for 6 months or a year at a time, it creates a situation where you have a wife now left at home or a girlfriend left at home. A lot of these soldiers, bless their heart, they try to make a real connection with their wife or girlfriend. They might propose and get married, but at the end of the day, you're creating a situation where one or both might cheat on each other. That's just the sad truth. And you've all heard the stories, but nobody wants to talk about that, because if people started talking about the reality of what happens when people are apart from each other for months and months or years at a time, then nobody would go sign up for the military, right? But instead, they push this whole narrative that she's going to wait for you and you're a hero, you're brave. No, they don't give a crap about that. All people care about is you being there for them, you showing up. And then we've got the advent of social media, and everybody's a movie star now on social media. They get endless amounts of attention online. And that puts even more pressure on relationships for people, because people are competing with the entire internet. This is the truth, you guys. Some people aren't going to want to hear this, but it is the truth. So, human sacrifice. You take out the most able. Now, why would governments of the world do this? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, they have to pay their leader, which is Satan. He rules this world. He requires sacrifice. But why does Satan want to do it? Well, so he can maintain power and control. Who's left behind are the people that aren't soldiers, right? Not to say we're anything less spiritually, or they're anything less spiritually. But when you talk about strength and power and maintaining the power base, you're basically taking out the enemy. You're taking out any group that could rise up against you for the unfair things you're doing in your government. They're just taking them out under a lie. Oh, you're fighting for your country. It's insidious what they've done, you guys. It's insidious, and it's been that way since the beginning of time. So, what else is going on? Should probably pop off here and turn off that generator. Yes, King David sacrificed Bathsheba's husband. That was his sin, which was originated by lust. So he was looking at her, but then he sent her husband into battle and he died. And that's when God punished him. God says Satan came to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus came that we may have life and have it more abundantly. 100%. Decimating soldiers as a sacrifice to Ares in Roman practice. Wow. Yes, Coca-Cola used to have cocaine. Trump disappears the same time as the China summit, says Sister Becky. Now, interestingly, I think Trump's supposed to make some major announcement today, because he had been out of the public eye for a while, for a few days. And it was noticeable because typically he wants his face to be seen every single day. And apparently he, has some announcement today. So we'll cover that probably tomorrow. The Scrooter dad had ties to the CIA. Absolutely. Now, what was the purpose of the Scrooter's manifesto, his neatly written book and all this? I mean, who does that? Especially a 20-something-year-old. Nobody writes in books anymore. Come on, you guys. It looked like a 12-year-old wrote all the pictures. I saw bits and pieces of it. I didn't really dive into the story with the Minnesota Scrooter, but the little bit that I saw, I was like, this is a joke. Who writes in notebooks anymore? Nobody. Who writes down all these ideologies? Nobody. It would have been more believable if he was typing the stuff into some kind of like Reddit post or something. Then I would have maybe believed it. But no, he wrote it all in a notebook. They don't even sell notebooks anymore. And then, so what is the purpose of it? It's to make you and I look crazy, to make his ideologies, to combine them with people like us who are awake. And so that people think, oh, you're going to go, scroot a bunch of people if you think this way. That's what the whole purpose of it was. They're creating a profile. They're creating a profile. So, okay. All right, you guys. Well, I am going to pop off here. I appreciate everybody showing up, and I'll likely see you tomorrow. I'll put links to all this in the pinned comment. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Leilani says he's a super soldiers. Tonette uses notebooks. Yeah, that's because we are old, Tonette. We know about notebooks. Okay, remember the Peachy folder? Let's go back to the past. Remember the Peachy, was it called a Peachy folder? I don't remember. But we were so broken poor. When we had to start school, we had a Peachy folder and a pencil and a ruler. That was all we got. And if we're lucky, we got like a little like pencil sharpener, those little green ones with the little thing on it. And you show up to school, oh, and a backpack. And so you put it in your backpack, you put all this stuff in your backpack. And you were like the poor kid because you pull out the folder and it had like some sports theme on it. It was like 2 colors and it was this folder and it would like fall apart on the first day. In fact, we used to, we knew the folder wasn't going to last. We just throw them around like Frisbees at each other. We just horse around and our folder would be ripped, right? Gosh, the indoctrination of school is just like so crazy. The memories. Was it called a Peachy folder? Peachy folder. Thank you. Bill remembers. Let's look it up for old time's sake. Peachy folder school. Vintage. It's, oh my gosh. Never thought I would see the day where I would be saying the word vintage, referring to my life. Here it is, you guys. Those are some memories right there, huh? Now look at this. I wasn't born in the 1950s, but they must have printed off 1 trillion of these folders because even the ones from the 90s and 80s had the 1950s like design on it. So we got a Peachy folder. Now, if you were really cool, you got like a little notebook. Oh, let's look up the notebook. School vintage notebook. What was that called? Oh my gosh. This is fun though. Notebook. I think it was called a notebook. Yeah. But this one was like black. That's not it. What was it called? It had like a name. Notebook. Anyway. So, and the notebook didn't have rings. It was just like a little book. And I hated the notebook because I hated writing. And I knew my teacher was going to make me do some dumb assignment where I was going to have to write in this notebook. And I was like, why are we writing in this notebook? This is stupid. Yeah, the Trapper Keeper. Ricardo remembers. But then it's like crazy. Because this was our life. And we bring all this up because that was 40 years ago. Nobody writes in this stuff anymore. I mean, okay. Does anyone, the composition notebook. Thank you. That's what it was called. Let's look it up. Composition. Just so we can all remember. Here it is. The composition notebook. And look, they were super cheap, remember? Here it is. composition notebook. And you would write in this thing and then you'd never pick it up ever again after you wrote in it. Then everything turned to computers. Now, if any of you have children that are in school, what do you have to buy for your children when the school year is going to start? What do you have to buy? I'm guessing you have to get them either a notebook, like an electronic notebook. There are no pencils anymore. You're not having to buy pencils and erasers and pencil sharpeners and, and paper notebooks and peachy folders. I'm thinking you're probably not having to buy all that right now. So for this, we're supposed to believe that the Scrooter went to Rite Aid and picked up a spiral notebook so he could write down a manifesto. They still sell the composition notebook. Oh my gosh. They need to come up with a new scenario if they're going to false flag us, right? It's provided by the school. Dollar store has them. Headphones for electronics. No cursive writing. Our school... Wait. Teach children at home. Yeah, I agree with that. Yes, you still have to buy all that every year. Marker, scissors, notebooks, says Jen. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe that. That is crazy. Call for an uprising on YouTube under Hive Mind Nation. Okay, cool. Thanks for that shout out. I do allow channel shout outs as long as it's not spamming in the chats. You can mention it once or twice. So that's allowed. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, says Snowball. Snowball probably has a million of those composition notebooks. You probably write all your stuff down in there, huh? Just be careful what you write down because somebody might find it one day. It's the Snowball Manifesto. His manifesto will say, get rid of your cell phones. Your cell phones are programming you. Yeah, 3 reams of paper. My goodness. Love Cat used to teach 5th grade. So you remember all this stuff. All right. Well, I love each and every one of you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for the memories, you guys. That was kind of fun. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Much love.